Hello students, welcome to Biotech Academy. From today, we'll start with protein biochemistry. So first, what are proteins? Proteins are the major macromolecules, major category of biomolecules which are present in the living cell, and these proteins are composed of L-alpha amino acids. So today's topic of discussion will be about amino acids, its structure, types of amino acids, and some of the physico-chemical properties of amino acids. So first, what are biomolecules? These biomolecules are organic molecules which are synthesized within the living cell and act as building blocks which perform variety of functions for the cell to survive and sustain. And these biomolecules are composed of some of the elements which include carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus and sulfur. These are 6 major elements of which all the category of biomolecules are composed of. Among these 4, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen and nitrogen, these 4 elements are predominant in nature, and comprise approximately 99% of the cell weight. Alright, so these are the predominant elements, 4 elements. There are 4 major categories of these biomolecules which are present in the living cell. Those 4 molecules are sugars, fatty acids, amino acids, and nucleotides. Now these 4 categories of biomolecules, they act as monomers, and polymers of these exist in the cell to perform variety of functions. For example, the polymeric form of the sugar which is present in the cell is known as polysaccharides. Polymers of fatty acids are known as fats or lipids. Now these 2 polymers or macromolecules, these are micromolecules and these are macromolecules because they are polymeric forms. Now these 2 polymeric forms or macromolecules, they perform 2 important functions. Number 1, they serve as the fuel source. Alright, so fuel source means they provide energy to the cell. And second, these act as the structural components, means the composition of the cell, the designing of the cell, the cell wall, etc., the lipid membrane, the biological membrane, all these are composed of these polysaccharides and lipids. Then comes amino acids. The polymeric form of these amino acids are known as proteins, and these are actually the effector molecules. They carry the information and carry out the desired effect or the phenotype. And nucleotides, the polymeric form, are known as nucleic acids, and there are 2 types of nucleic acids in cell, DNA and RNA, which carry the genetic information from one generation to the other. So these carry the nucleic acids, they carry the information from one generation to the other, and they are translated into proteins which carry out the desired effect. So these are 4 major categories of biomolecules that are present in any cell. Among these 4, proteins are the major ones. Majority of the major molecule which is present, and in a cell this takes the second position. The first molecule, the major molecule is water, and then besides water, this is the largest amount of molecule which is present in any cell. So now coming to proteins which are composed of amino acids, let's discuss about amino acids. So what are amino acids? Amino acids are amino acids are the molecules which are composed of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and in some instances it also contains sulfur. These elements comprise of these amino acids, and they act as building blocks for proteins. Proteins are the polymers of these amino acids, where these amino acids are linked to each other or the neighboring amino acids via a special type of covalent bond which is known as peptide bond. This peptide bond bridges the two amino acids or links the two amino acids to form a linear chain of amino acids which is known as proteins. Now these proteins may be homopolymer or heteropolymer. In general, they are heteropolymer in nature, and there are 20 standard amino acids. 20 different standard amino acids are present in cell. Varied composition of these amino acids, the sequence are variable, which gives rise to the entire proteome, which carry out variety of functions in the cell. So the general structure of an amino acid, it includes a carboxyl group, an amino group, a carboxyl group, an amino group, a hydrogen atom, and a side chain or variable R group. And the structure, look, all these are linked to a central alpha carbon atom. So the structure, general structure of an amino acid looks like this. Is the central alpha carbon atom, a carboxyl group, right, an amino group which is positively charged, a hydrogen atom, and a variable R group. Now this R group is different in 20 different amino acids, and it is these difference of different R groups which provide different properties to 20 different standard amino acids, and the properties of this R group is used to categorize, to classify these amino acids, right? So these amino acids can be classified as polar based on the side chain, which may be polar in nature, which may be non-polar in nature, may be positively charged, may be negatively charged. For all amino acids except glycine, the alpha carbon atom is bonded to four different groups. All right. So because glycine is the simplest amino acid, this is the simplest amino acid where the R group is just an hydrogen atom. So the structure of glycine has two hydrogen atoms. So the structure of glycine is C alpha, COO minus, NH3 plus, R group, which is another hydrogen atom. This is R group and one hydrogen atom. So this is the simplest amino acid, glycine, which is abbreviated as GLY, and its single letter code is G. So you all must remember the 20 amino acids with their abbreviation 3-letter code, as well as, if you can remember some of the important amino acids, the single letter code as well, which will be useful for you all to identify the sequence. So the alpha carbon atom, this alpha carbon atom is chiral in nature. So if you remember, you must have studied in 11th and 12th standard the chirality. What is chirality? Is that this central carbon atom, when bonded to four different groups which occupy different spatial positions due to the tetrahedral structure and form non-superimposable images. Non-superimposable images are that this is your hand, this is the second hand. These are the non-superimposable images. Alright, so this is chirality in nature. And except glycine, all 19 amino acids are chiral in nature, and based on the chirality, the two forms are present, D form and L form. D stands for dextrorotatory. Means it can rotate the plane of polarized light towards right, and L form is levorotatory, which can rotate the plane of polarized light towards left. So this is the optical property of these amino acids, that it can rotate the plane of polarized light to left or right. Now these two forms are prevalent in nature, but in proteins only the L form of amino acids exist. Now you may ask, why L form only? Because amino acids in nature can exist in two forms, both D as well as L. But proteins in polymeric form, it exists only in L form. Why? Because these proteins are digested by enzymes, and enzymes, which we'll be discussing in later on, these enzymes are stereospecific, means they can digest only a particular form. They can digest only a particular form of amino acids, that is the L form, and because the enzymes have a structure, the active site is such that only the L form can fit into it, and it can break down the proteins into smaller peptides. So the L forms of proteins, L form of amino acids exist in the proteins. Alright, so now we'll discuss some of the important other properties of amino acids as well. So the first important property which we've discussed is the optical property of amino acids, that it is chiral in nature and it can rotate the plane of polarized light to left or right. Now the second important property is of the amino acids is that it can act as both acid or a base. Means it can either donate a proton or accept a proton. Remember the Bronsted-Lowry theory? So this, which is dependent on the pH of the solution, because the general structure is such that it has a negatively charged carboxyl group as well and the positively charged amino group as well. So depending on the surrounding pH of the solution, the one form or the other form can exist, and it can act as either an acid or a base. At neutral pH, the amino acid has no net charge. Alright, it has no net charge, means the carboxyl group is negatively charged and the amino group is positively charged. So there is no net charge on the amino acid molecule. However, depending if the pH is low or the pH is high, the molecule can have positive or negative charge. So how it happens? See, this is the structure of an amino acid. Alright, so this is intermediate pH, or you can say the neutral pH. So it has both positive charge as well as the negative charge. However, when the pH is low, so we can call here when the pH at which there is no net charge on the molecule, that pH is known as Pi, or isoelectric point, where there is no net charge on the molecule. That is called isoelectric point. However, if the pH of the solution is lower than Pi, what happens then? If the pH of the solution is lower than Pi, then this carboxyl group, it accepts a proton. If it is accepting a proton, means it is acting as a base. So what happens? It accepts a proton and it becomes OH. Alright. The carboxyl group here is protonated and it becomes here there is no net charge. However, the amino group has positive charge. So the molecule overall has a positive charge. However, if the pH on the other hand is greater than the isoelectric point, what happens then? If the pH is greater, then in that case this amino group is deprotonated, means it loses its proton molecule. And what happens is this molecule becomes negatively charged, because here it is losing a proton and the positive charge goes here. However, there is negative charge here. So it is acting as both a base or an acid depending on the pH of the solution. Alright. So these are known as, this property is known as zwitterine. This is known as zwitterine, means it can exist as dipole. It is dipolar in nature. It has both positive and negative charge, and the amino acid molecules are known as amphoteric molecule because it can act both as an acid or a base depending on the surrounding pH. Alright, next, the other important property regarding optical activity was how do we measure the polarity. Alright, how do we measure the optical activity of the amino acids or in any molecule? That is measured using polarimeter. Alright, so and optical rotation is defined as it is the quantitative measure of the quantitative measure of the optical activity of the molecule, that is known as optical rotation, and it is given by the formula alpha T lambda L into C. Alright, so where a degree is the rotation which is measured in degrees, alpha T lambda is the specific rotation of a compound. This is the specific rotation of a compound at temperature. This is the temperature T and wavelength lambda. Now C is the concentration. Of the molecule in grams per ml, and L is the light path length. In decimeter. So this defines the optical rotation of the. From this formula we can calculate the optical rotation of any molecule. Then there are two different other forms in which these amino acids exist, that is known as the absolute configuration of amino acids, which are the D and L forms. These are the two stereoisomers. Stereoisomers are, again, they are non-superimposable mirror images, and these non-superimposable mirror images exist based on the D-glyceraldehyde and L-glyceraldehyde form. So two different absolute configurations exist in these amino acids. There are D forms and L forms. All amino acids except glycine exist in these two forms. Why glycine is not existing in this form? Because the R group is H atom and there are two H atoms. Alright. So the two H atoms, so they can be superimposed. Alright. Now there are 20 standard, as I mentioned earlier, there are 20 standard amino acids which are different because of their variable R group, and these 20 amino acids, because of the property of the R group, they are categorized into different forms, which are like non-polar, polar charged. Based on the R group, the amino acids can be categorized as polar, non-polar in nature. These polar can further be categorized into charged and uncharged. Now these charged can further be categorized into two: positively charged R group and negatively charged R group. So it all depends on the R group which is present on the amino acid, which determines the chemical property of the overall amino acid molecule. The R group determines imparts the specific property to the amino acid molecule. Now you must remember these 20 amino acids, and one or the other examples you definitely need to know. So there are some important tricks which you can use to memorize. So there are three aromatic amino acids. Alright, these three amino acids are, you can memorize it as TTP, tryptophan, tyrosine and phenylalanine. These are aromatic amino acids because the R group in these three are cyclic in nature. Then there are two sulfur containing amino acids. Sulfur containing amino acids are methionine and metensis. So these are two sulfur containing amino acids. Then simplest amino acids, I have already repeatedly been saying, simplest amino acid is glycine, and the cyclic amino acid is proline. Apart from that, the cyclic amino acid is proline because it contains an imino group, not an amino group. An imino group means the R chain is cyclic in nature. Then aliphatic side chain containing amino acids, you can memorize it as GAVLI. Now this is just a trick. Aliphatic side chain containing amino acids, this is just a trick, GAVLI, where G stands for glycine, A alanine, V valine, L leucine and I isoleucine. So GAVLI, these are 5 amino acids with aliphatic side chains. Then there are amino acids with charged side chains. There are charged, I told, no? There are charged side chains, positively charged and negatively charged. Alright, so there are 2 amino acids which are positively charged, which are aspartate and glutamate, and there are 3 aspartate and glutamate, and there are 3 amino acids which are negatively charged, which are lysine, arginine and histidine. Alright, so these are some of the classifications based on the property of the side chain on which the amino acids are grouped into. Alright, so you must remember these, at least one or two examples from each. Alright, so now next, apart from these 20 standard amino acids, these are 20 standard amino acids. Apart from these 20 standard amino acids, there are certain non-standard amino acids which are present, and these non-standard amino acids are either they are synthesized, they are modifications of these standard amino acids, or they are, in some instances, they are synthesized by post-synthetic modifications. And these uncommon amino acids, they perform some important biological functions. So for example, some of the non-standard amino acids I am enlisting out here. Non-standard amino acids, some are just, for example, ornithine and citrulline. These two, ornithine and citrulline, these two non-standard amino acids, they are key intermediates in arginine biosynthesis and in urea cycle. Alright, other is selenocysteine. Another is selenocysteine, which contains a selenium atom rather than sulfur of structural analog cysteine. This selenocysteine is structural analog of standard amino acid cysteine, and this cysteine contains sulfur, whereas this selenocysteine contains selenium, and it is synthesized by post-synthetic modification. It is not modified form of standard amino acid. Alright, so there are some other examples are 4-hydroxyproline, 5-hydroxy, 5-hydroxy lysine, desmosine, N-formyl, methionine. Now these are some of the examples of non-standard amino acids which are modifications of the standard amino acids. So 4-hydroxyproline is a modification of proline where at the 4th position 1-hydroxyl group is added. 5-hydroxylysine is in the side chain of lysine. At the 5th carbon 1-hydroxyl group is added. Alright, so these are some of the non-standard amino acids which perform different functions in the cell. Now, other important property is the titration of amino acids. Now, because the amino acids, these amino acids, they can act as both acids or a base, the titration of amino acid illustrates the effect of pH on the side chain or the R group of the amino acids. So, for example, alanine, we'll discuss about the titration curve of alanine. In alanine, the R group is a methyl group, CH3. Alright, so what will be the structure of a central alpha carbon atom? Then a COO minus, okay, then an H group, a CH3 and NH3 plus. So this is at intermediate pH, or when pH is equal to Pi, the molecule is carrying no net charge. This alanine molecule is carrying no net charge. However, on addition of base, like NaOH and gradual addition, when we are adding base, then there is the carboxyl group is protonated. Means this will be converted into COOH and the molecule will become positively charged. Whereas further addition of the base, this amino group will again will become deprotonated, and it will become positively charged, and the overall charge on the molecule will be negative. So what happens? So I'll draw the structure again. So C alpha, this COO minus, H, CH3 and NH3 plus. So this is at pH is equal to Pi. When pH is less than Pi, then it will become COOH, means it will become protonated. This will be NH3 plus H and CH3, and the molecule will become positively charged. Whereas at high pH, when pH is greater than Pi, this amino group will lose its proton, means this is going to be deprotonated, and the molecule will become negatively charged. So here it will become NH2 only, H and CH3. So Pi is calculated on the basis, there are two pKa values, and Pi will be pK1 plus pK2 upon 2. Average of these two pK values will be the Pi value. Alright, so the more complex, this is the simple alanine, because it has, the R group is just a methyl group, so it has two pK values. However, the complex the side chain is, for example, the charged side chain, the molecule, the amino acids with R side chain being charged, there the titration curve is more complex, because then there is a competition of becoming protonated or deprotonated of the side chain as well. So for example, we'll discuss about glutamic acid here. We'll discuss the titration of glutamic acid. Right. So this is the structure of glutamate. Okay. So this is the structure at pH is equal to Pi. Okay. Now, when pH is less, here this will again become protonated. This is NH3 plus CH2, CH2, COOH. So here the net charge is +1. However, it has two negative charges. It will also lose one proton from here and one proton from here. So there will be two further pKa values. So first this will lose one. So first this will lose one proton. This COOH will lose, the side chain will lose its proton first rather than the amino group. So first this is H, COO minus, CH2, CH2 and COO minus. So the net charge is -1 here. Alright, because one positive, one negative cancels out here, but there is one negative charge here. So this will be -1. Now further increase in pH will cause deprotonation of this amino group, and the structure will be, here it will be H2. So there will be -2 charge. Alright, so this is how the side chain determines the titration curve of these amino acids. So next, the other property of the last property is the absorbance. So these amino acids absorb UV radiation at particular wavelength. So there are only 3 amino acids which absorb UV light. Those are the aromatic amino acids because of the cyclic R chain. These amino acids, these are three amino acids, three aromatic amino acids which are TTP. To memorize, tryptophan, tyrosine and phenylalanine, these three amino acids, they absorb, give maximum absorbance at 280 nanometer. So only these three amino acids are there which absorb UV radiation at maximum at 280 nanometers, and it is this property which is utilized for quantification of amino acids or quantification of proteins when we isolate proteins from any cell. So we measure the concentration based on the absorbance values. So these, whatever we have discussed here, these are some of the important properties of amino acids. And from next, we'll discuss about peptide bonds, how the peptide bonds are formed, and formation of different levels of protein structured in the next lecture. I hope whatever I explained, you all found it useful. If you all have any doubts, you can ask me in the comment section or on the email ID. I'll be happy to answer all your queries. In the next, after discussing about peptide bonds and the structure of proteins, we'll do some problems which have been asked from these units from these exams. In various exams like DBT or ICMR and CSIR exams, we'll discuss actual problems which have been asked in various sections, section B and section C, for practice purposes. In the next class, I'll also discuss about how to identify the structure of the proteins depending on the amino acid sequence. So please go through the basics from the reference books and study hard, because exam is going to be held in the mostly in the month of October or November. So wishing you all the very best and thank you.